Have you ever held something so tightly that your fingers ached? Not out of greed, but out of pure, desperate need? Like it was the only thread connecting you to the world, to sanity, to hope? This rosary was that thread for me. It wasn't always mine. And the story I'm about to tell you isn't a gentle Christmas fable. It's raw. It's real. It's about the Christmas I hid a darkness so profound I didn't believe I'd see the new year. And it's about how a string of beads, and a prayer whispered for centuries, became the lifeline I never knew I needed. My name is Sarah. I live in Chicago. And this is the true testimony of the Christmas rosary that saved my life. But before we begin, I need you to do something for me. Pause right now. Type hope in the comments and tell me what city you're watching from. Let's create a chain of faith across the globe. I read every single one. In my darkest hour, knowing I wasn't alone, that was everything. So, let me know you're here. My life, by all external metrics, was fine, good, even. I had a career in marketing, a decent apartment with a view of the lake, friends. But inside, I was a ghost. It had been a slow bleed. The loss of my mother after a long illness 2 years prior had left a void that just seemed to expand. Grief is one thing. What followed was a quiet, relentless despair. The career felt meaningless. The friendships felt strained, like I was acting the part of Sarah. The vibrant Chicago winters, which I once loved, felt like a gray, endless prison. And then came the Christmas season. The forced joy, the relentless commercials, the memory of my mother's gingerbread house and her off-key caroling. It wasn't a celebration. It was an excavation of every ounce of pain I had. Last year, on December 18th, I remember standing in my apartment, looking at the twinkling lights of the city below, and feeling nothing but a cold, hollow vacuum. The thought that whispered in my ear wasn't loud or dramatic. It was calm and final. I can't do this anymore. Not another day. Not another Christmas. I'm sharing this not for shock, but because someone watching right now knows that whisper. That deep, terrifying fatigue of the soul. You're not alone. I was there. The plan formed with a chilling clarity. I'd tidy my affairs, write some notes, and on Christmas Eve, when the world was quiet and wrapped in its own joy, I'd simply stop. It felt less like a decision and more like a grim, inevitable conclusion. 2 days before Christmas Eve, a blizzard warning was issued. Lake-effect snow was going to bury the city. Perfect, I thought. A final, clean blanket of white. As the first flakes began to fall that afternoon, I realized I'd run out of coffee. A mundane last task. I bundled up and trudged 3 blocks to a small old grocery store I rarely visited. The aisles were cramped, the lighting fluorescent and harsh. I just wanted to get in and out. But as I turned down the canned goods aisle, I saw her. An elderly woman, tiny, bundled in a coat that looked decades old, struggling to reach a can of soup on a high shelf. Her hands were trembling. Without thinking, I stepped forward. Let me get that for you. I handed her the can. Her eyes met mine. They weren't cloudy with age, but a piercing, crystal blue. She took the can, but her gaze held me. It was a look of profound, unsettling seeing. Thank you, dear, she said, her voice like dry leaves. You have a kind heart, but it's so very heavy. I froze. A stranger in a grocery store had just looked into the core of me. I stammered something about the weather. She nodded, not breaking eye contact. The storm outside is nothing compared to the storm inside, is it? Before I could react, she reached into her worn purse and pulled out a small, brown paper bag. She pressed it into my hands. Her skin was paper-thin and cool. This is for you. Don't open it until you get home. Promise, an old woman. I was too stunned to refuse. I muttered a promise. She smiled, a smile that seemed to hold both immense sorrow and boundless compassion. The mother sees you, Sarah. She has never looked away. And then she turned and shuffled down the aisle, disappearing around the corner. My blood ran cold. She knew my name. I never told her my name. I stood there, holding the bag, my heart hammering. I abandoned my cart, paid for nothing, and rushed back into the swirling snow, the little bag clutched to my chest. Back in my sterile, silent apartment, I stared at the bag on my kitchen counter. The encounter felt surreal, like a dream fragment. Part of me, the rational, broken part, thought it was a coincidence, a hallucination born of stress. But her eyes, and my name. With trembling hands, I opened the bag. Inside, there was no note, no explanation, just a simple, wooden rosary. The beads were smooth, dark, like chestnuts. The crucifix was simple, the figure of Jesus worn almost smooth. It felt ancient and incredibly humble. And there was a scent, not of perfume, but of roses and old wood, faint but undeniable. I was not a devout person. I'd been raised loosely Catholic, but it was a cultural thing. Easter, Christmas, weddings. Prayer was a forgotten language. The Rosary, a mysterious artifact from my grandmother's generation. I felt a strange mix of disappointment and awe. What was I supposed to do with this? I laid it on the counter and tried to forget. But I couldn't. Her words echoed. The mother sees you. The words should have felt intrusive, but instead, they felt like being seen for the first time in years. Not my facade, but my shattered interior. That night, as the blizzard howled outside, shaking my windows, the darkness in me rose like a tide. The plan felt more concrete than ever. Desperation, a final, frantic thought. What if? Almost against my will, I picked up the rosary. It felt warm in my cold hands. I Googled how to pray the rosary on my phone. The instructions were complicated. Mysteries, Our Fathers, Hail Marys. It felt overwhelming. So, I just started. Holding the crucifix, I whispered the only prayer I half remembered, Hail Mary, full of grace. The words felt clumsy, foreign on my tongue. I fumbled through a decade, my mind screaming that this was absurd. But with each repeated Hail Mary, something subtle began to shift. The repetitive, rhythmic prayer was like a mental broom, slowly sweeping aside the chaotic, panicked thoughts. I wasn't feeling divine connection. I was just focusing on the next word, the next bead. It was a mechanical act of will. I finished one decade. Then, I started another. The joyful mysteries. The Annunciation. Blessed art thou amongst women. I thought of my mother, her joy when she found out she was pregnant with me. The Visitation. Mary visiting Elizabeth. I remembered driving to my best friend's side when her father died. The Nativity. A birth in poverty, in darkness. A light in the deepest night. Tears began to stream down my face. Not pretty tears, but ugly, heaving sobs. I wasn't crying to God or Mary. I was crying for my mother. I was crying for myself. I was crying for the accumulated loneliness of 2 years. I prayed through the sobs, the beads slipping through wet fingers. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about the end. I was just present in the storm of my own grief, holding on to this physical, wooden anchor. I don't know how long I prayed, but I eventually fell asleep on the couch, the rosary still wrapped around my hand, the lights of the Christmas tree I'd put up out of obligation blinking silently across the room. I want to pause here. Isn't it amazing how the divine often chooses the most innocent among us to deliver a message? A message not of doom, but of hope. That woman in the grocery store, she wasn't an angel in the Hallmark sense. She was real, frail, human. And yet, she was a messenger. If this story is already touching your heart, if it's renewing a sense of wonder in you, then do us a huge favor. Hit that like button below. It tells the YouTube algorithm that this is meaningful content, and it helps us share these stories of hope with more people. Now, let's get back to the story. I woke on Christmas Eve morning. The city was buried under 2 feet of snow, silent and luminous. The crushing, suicidal weight from the day before was still there, but it was different. It was a weight I was carrying, not a weight that was crushing me. A fragile, gossamer thread of maybe had appeared. I spent the day in a strange, quiet limbo. I made tea. I looked at the Rosary. I prayed another decade. The words were becoming more familiar. I watched the snowplows crawl down the street. My plan for the evening still sat in the back of my mind, but it felt distant, like a bad movie I'd once seen. As dusk fell, the true battle began. The silence of the apartment became oppressive again. The memories of Christmases past assaulted me. The demon of despair returned, armed with my deepest arguments. Nothing has changed. You're still alone. This is just a psychological trick. That woman was just a crazy old lady. The Rosary is just wood. The urge to enact my final plan became almost a physical pull. I was in my coat, staring at the door, shaking. Then, I looked at the Rosary on the coffee table. It was a bargain with myself. I sat down, numb, and picked it up. I started the sorrowful mysteries. The agony in the garden. My soul is sorrowful even unto death. The words weren't just about Jesus now. They were my words. My agony. I prayed for everyone feeling that same agony right now. The scourging. The crowning with thorns. The carrying of the cross. With each mystery, I felt a strange solidarity not just with Christ, but with every human being who had ever suffered, who had ever felt abandoned, who had ever fallen under the weight of their own cross. I was not alone in my suffering. I was part of a vast, ancient human tapestry of pain. Then, the fifth sorrowful mystery, the crucifixion. As I prayed the Hail Marys for that final, terrible mystery, holding the smooth wooden beads, something broke. A dam inside me shattered. It wasn't a vision. I didn't hear a voice. But I was flooded with a knowing, a certainty that defied all logic. It was the certainty of a mother's love. Not my earthly mother, though that love was included, but a love vaster, deeper, and more intimate than anything I had ever conceived. It was a love that saw every ugly, broken, shameful part of me and did not flinch. It held me. It was a love that was present at my birth, present in my mother's laughter, present in every moment of grief, and was present right now, in this dark apartment. This love was with me in my suffering, not watching from a distance. The words of the Hail Mary transformed. Pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. The hour of our death didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a promise of accompaniment, that no matter when or how that hour came, I would not be alone. This mother, this Mary, would be there, as she was there at the foot of her own son's cross. She understood. I wept again, but this time it was a weeping of release, of a lifelong burden being lifted from my shoulders by hands infinitely stronger and gentler than my own. The suicidal plan didn't just seem wrong, it seemed irrelevant, a tiny, dark speck swallowed by an ocean of luminous, merciful love. I whispered into the quiet room, "Thank you." I don't know how long I stayed there, wrapped in that profound peace. The clock struck midnight. It was Christmas. The rest of the night is a blur of gentle grace. I called a 24-hour crisis line, not because I was in crisis anymore, but because I wanted to tell someone, I'm going to be okay. The patient voice on the other end listened and simply said, "I'm so glad you're still here." I emailed an old friend, just saying, "I've had a rough time. Can we talk soon?" She replied immediately, "Always. I've been worried." The next morning, Christmas Day, the sun was blinding on the snow. I felt fragile, like a newborn, but alive. Truly alive for the first time in years. I went back to that small grocery store. It was closed for the holiday. I asked around the neighborhood about the elderly woman. No one knew who I was describing. The manager said no employee matched that description. She was gone. But the rosary remained. And so did the peace. The journey since that night hasn't been a magic wand. Depression is a subtle foe, and grief still visits. There are hard days. But I am different. I have an anchor. I pray the rosary daily now. It's my grounding wire. It's no longer a desperate plea, but a conversation, a place to deposit my worries and receive that quiet, maternal peace. I found a local parish with a vibrant, welcoming community. I started therapy. I'm rebuilding my life, but now on a foundation of that unshakable love I encountered in the darkness. I learned later that the rosary is often called a spiritual weapon. I believe it. It's a weapon against despair, against isolation, against the lie that we are unseen and unloved. It's a repetitive, loving mantra that slowly rewires the heart to recognize the presence of the divine in our human struggle. So, why am I telling you this on a YouTube channel for all the world to see? Because someone is watching this right now, in a quiet room, feeling that same hollow ache I felt. You are holding your own invisible rosary of pain. You think no one sees you. You think the storm will never end. I am here to tell you, with every fiber of my being, you are seen. You are loved. Your life is a sacred story, and this dark chapter is not the end. Hold on. Ask for a sign. Be open to the messenger who might appear in the most ordinary grocery store aisle of your life. They might just have a paper bag with your name on it. The Virgin Mary's message, from Guadalupe to Lourdes to Fatima, and to a lonely apartment in Chicago, is always the same. Do not be afraid. I am with you. And sometimes she sends a tangible reminder, a simple string of beads, to give our trembling hands something to hold on to. If this story touched your heart, then I have a simple request. Please take a second to subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. By subscribing, you're becoming part of our community, a community of seekers, of strugglers, of believers in hope. You won't miss our next video exploring life's deepest mysteries and the quiet miracles that happen every day. And if you felt that spark of hope today, do 2 more things for me. First, hit the like button. It truly helps this message reach others who are searching in the darkness. Second, share this video. Share it with a friend, a family member, or even on your social media. You never know who needs to hear this testimony today. You might be the one handing them the paper bag. And finally, I want to hear from you. Please, write in the comments. Tell me about a miracle you've witnessed or experienced, big or small. A coincidence that changed things, a moment of unexpected peace, a prayer answered. Or just say hello and tell me where you're watching from. Let's build this global tapestry of hope, one comment at a time. This rosary saved my life. But more accurately, it led me to the love that was holding my life all along. This Christmas, whatever you're carrying, know that you are not alone. The Mother sees you. And so do I. God bless you. And may your days be filled with the peace that surpasses all understanding. Merry Christmas.